Hello guys, once again it's Matt and today we have another video. Thank you all the members, all the patrons, make sure to subscribe and let's get into it guys. So today I wanted to actually do an Indian aircraft, basically Tech 3, as a sub-Tech 3, more or less. I mean, it's problematic, I don't know. Basically, it would be similar to what Israelis have, right? We are working on the Soviet Tech 3, upcoming Soviet Tech 3, and you know, what can come in the future of the Soviet Tech 3, just like we did with the German. But I really wanted to do this one first because if you remember, the actual T90S was actually found in the files, right? A T90 exported to India, right? So it was pretty interesting to see that. It got removed, but it got the match lit on maybe we will see something along these lines of just Indian aircraft. So how kind of a smaller Tech 3 just like the Israeli ones would be like. And I gotta thank Lazy Lime to actually helping out. She's one of my moderators in the Discord, and she actually did this like image here that you will see. We are going to go up to rank 8 and you will see what can happen, okay? So first of all, reserve aircraft, nothing too crazy. We have the Wapiti, I think Wapiti, I don't know, a 2A, a late 20s, early 30s aircraft, fighter, bomber, reconnaissance, you know, something like this. 208 kilometers per hour max speed, one Vickers 7.7 and one Lewis guns 7.7 as well, and up to 260 kilograms of bombs. So yeah, like a reserve aircraft, very old aircraft, right? Then we go for the Lysander. We're going to talk about each rank over here, obviously. Lysander 3A, 1938 monoplane, reconnaissance, 341 kilometers per hour max speed, two 7.7s, two Louis guns on the gunner, and then four, they say 9 kilogram bombs, which are very small, and then one 227 kilogram bomb under the fuselage. So interesting aircraft, but nothing crazy as well. The Harvan 2B, basically a T6, you know, Texan, apparently. It is a combat-capable trainer, 335 kilometers per hour, three 7.62 machine guns. The Vengeance 1A, a 1940s diver, basically dive bomber, right? 443 kilometers per hour max speed, four 7.62, so very limited, two 7.62 millimeter on the gunner, and then two internal 500-pound bombs plus two 50-pound bombs under the wings as well. Hawker Hart, so that would be for like a bomber line over here. 1930s biplane, very similar to the Fury, 298 kilometers per hour max speed, one 7.7, so the Fury and stuff, they have two, this would be one, and it has one Lewis gun on the back as well, 240 kilograms of bombs under the wings, so nothing crazy, but yeah, interesting. The Blenheim Mach 1, very similar to the Blenheims that we have, but it would have less power. I think it was like 840 horsepower each engine, so a little bit less armor as well on the fuselage and stuff, and less ammo, less gunners, stuff like that. The 7.7 on the offensive part still there, okay? Then we go for rank 2. This would be rank 1. Rank 2 starts with two aircraft, Hurricane 2B, basically the same as in the British Tech 3, but without the tropicalization modification, right? So without the filters and stuff that it has to go into hot climates. So yeah, then we go to the Spitfire Mark 8. That would be similar to the Mark 7, but without pressurization. These Mark 7s and Mark 6 evens, they were basically high altitude interceptor versions, so they have the longer, thinner wings on the tips. Very interesting aircraft. I don't think we do have one of those yet, which is kind of odd. But yeah, it can receive that. Then Spitfire Mark 4 for rank 3. Very early Griffon engine here. Just very similar to what we have in the game. Then we would have the Spitfire TR9, also as a premium or something like that, a trainer converted to combat duties as well. Then the Spitfire Mark 18, obviously, the Mark 18 is very similar to one we have in the game. Tempest Mark 2, very similar to one we have in the game, nothing too crazy to talk about. B-24J, very similar to the D variant, but with more modern bomb sights, more modern autopilot and other systems like that internally, right? So nothing crazy to talk about it. Then we would go to rank 5. So as you see, it's a very small line, and that's why I think it should be like an Israeli tech tree, or even just maybe ignore these ones and just start with rank 4 with the first Griffon or something like that. It can be like that as well, just like the Israeli is. So it's another option, okay? Then we go for the interesting ones, the jets. So Vampire F3, very similar to what we have in the game with the F5, but it has the Rolls-Royce NAN engine instead of the Goblin, so a little bit less powerful. Everything else is basically the same. We have the Vampire FB52, an exported model of the FB6, so Goblin 3 engine, so more power than the current FB5 that we have in game as well. So a weaker one and then a stronger one from the FB5 of the British Tech Tree. Then the Vampire NF54, this is an exported NF10 model refurbished for export, basically a night fighter version of it, very similar to the other ones. So yeah. Then the MD450A Autogun, similar to the B Autogun, but with a weaker engine, the NN102 instead of the 104A, I think it was called. So just basically the same aircraft with a weaker engine, okay? Then we go to the Ajude, I don't know how do I pronounce that, Mark 1, domestically built jet aircraft that came from the Follangmat design. So has 2 Aidens, capacity to carry bombs, rockets, with a total of 900 kilograms of payload and also 1,152 kilometers max speed. It's an aircraft that we don't have in the game right now, but still it would be interesting. It's basically Foland built in India, okay? Then a fully, domestically built Indian aircraft, the HF-24 Marut, I think it's called. First Indian aircraft to be fully developed in India. It's a fighter bomber from 1967. It has 4 Aidens, up to 1,800 kilograms of rockets and bombs, and it has a max speed of 1,112 kilometers per hour. Very interesting aircraft. I would suggest that it is like a weaker Q5 or something similar to that, right? Then, of course, event vehicles. Obviously, these are event vehicles. Sorry, this is the premium ones. So event vehicle Seahawk FJ6, sorry, basically the one we have in game in the British Tech Tree. The Vampire NF10, basically the NF54, but an export, it's basically the same aircraft as this one, but as a premium, maybe different skins and stuff would be cool. Then we go for rank 6, something that can come to it is the Mystère 4A, basically the same aircraft that we see in the French Tech Tree. The Hunter FGA-56, an exported variant of the FGA-9 ground tech fighter for India, right? So basically what we have as a premium for the British Tech Tree. MiG-21 F-13, nothing too crazy, same aircraft as always, R3Ss and stuff, same aircraft basically. Then we go for the MiG-21M, an exported model of the MiG-21S that we have in the game, but it has some differences. The 2 main ones are the internal cannon, that it's not a pod anymore, so it has a proper internal cannon just like the Beast and other MiGs. And also, most likely uses the R11 engine instead of the R13 on the MiG-21S that we have in game right now, right? Also, it has an older radar, so yeah, you have to consider that. So basically an exported version of the S. HF-24 Mark 1R, so this would be basically the same aircraft as the other one, but it is a kind of a prototype that got a new engine with 18% more power with an afterburner. So very interesting. Then the Su-7, obviously it is in the Russian Tech Tree as a premium. Nothing too crazy about it, but yeah, very good bomber, fighter bomber. Then we go for the Jaguars. There's a lot of Jaguars there. GR1, same as we have in game, nothing to put out or put in, the normal GR1. Then we would have some bombers over here. The Canberra BY-66, same as the Mark 6 that we have in the British Tech Tree. the Canberra BI-58, basically a tropicalized version of the I-8 version, which is a B6 that was even more, just better for interdictions and as an interdictor bomber, right? It has a new canopy design to the side and stuff. Still has the 420 millimeters. Still has the same bombs, but it also has labs as well. Cannot remember if the other one has it, but yeah. Then MiG-23BN, obviously nothing to say about this. Normal MiG-23 that we have, ground attacker, no radar, laser, rangefinder only, non-guided stuff, just basically that. And then as an event vehicle, or even as a premium if they want to, the MiG-21FL. But it is kind of problematic, this one. It was an exported, downgraded version of the MiG-21PF, right? Has a worse radar and a worse engine. Cannot use the beam riding missiles. So the real problem is that I don't know if this actually used any gunpowder or anything like that. Which means that if it didn't, it would just have two R3Ss. So it would be very, very bad in the game, So I don't think this should be even added if the gun wasn't available. But it couldn't confirm it, okay? Then rank 7. Rank 7 starts to really pick up the performance of aircraft. Obviously, Sea Harrier FRS 51. Very, very similar to the FRS-1 that we have, but for export. It can use the Magic 1 missile, and it was even later upgraded. I mean, it depends if they want to add a late version or whatever, with the 2032 Israeli radar, right? The Elm, I think it's called. And he can even use the Derby Fox 3 missiles. So very capable in today's armament. It would be a very bad aircraft in the sense of performance, but it would have the radar and the missiles to deal with very advanced targets. So if they actually want to add the initial version, it would be very similar to what we have with the FRS-1, but with Magics instead of the A9s. Then MiG-21MF, obviously same as we have in game, basically the exported variant of the SM that we don't have in game. Then the MiG-21 BIS, obviously, MiG-21 BIS we all know and love, nothing too crazy about it, the same aircraft as we already know. MiG-23 MF, obviously exported variant of the M, the one we already have in game, so these would be basically copy-paste. Then we have some Jaguars over here as attackers, right? The first one would be the IS, very similar to the GR1, but built in India, apparently, with the, we can even have the Daring 2 package with the Ador Mark 811 engine, so a more powerful engine, basically. Maybe more powerful missiles as well. Jaguar IM, naval striker, basically very similar to the older ones, but it is using the Agave French radar together with the Sea Eagle anti-ship missile. So yeah, very interesting. And then the Jaguar IM Daring 3, basically the same from what we have, but with the Elm 252 ISL radar, so very powerful radar, and also the SRAM missile, so a very powerful missile as well. The performance and everything would lack, but you would have a very good radar with some very good missiles. So very interesting as well to have an attacker with such a powerful air-to-air capability in that regard, Then we go for the kind of bomber situations over here. These are two very interesting aircraft. The MiG-27M Bahadur is also known as the MiG-27ML or even the MiG-27L, depending on where and who are you asking for to, right? Exported model of the normal MiG-27M, but it has kits. It was basically built with kits made in the Soviet Union and mounted on the Indian territory, right? And it basically has an IRST, so it is a MiG-27M that has an IRST. So very weird and interesting. Then obviously MiG-25 RBK, reconnaissance bomber version of the MiG-25, upgraded with better elite systems than the original RBs, right? But they removed the normal reconnaissance camera. So basically it would be a very fast bomber. It has countermeasures, and it would be basically that. No cannon, no missiles, but at least in theory, right? I mean, no missiles. and just bombs. So a very like a Yak-28 kind of situation, but even more difficult to fly. Then we have the MiG-23s for trainers. So here, an event vehicle, for example, can be a trainer of the MiG-23. It has the RP-21M radar, the MiG-21's radar. So it is basically a heavier MiG-23 that uses different armament a little bit, and most specifically, worse radars. The UM, it's really hard to find information about this, so Gaijin would need to do some research, but the UM would be a little bit more modern than these UB, basically. But yeah, they use very old radars, like MiG-21's radars and MiG-21's missiles and stuff, but it would be a very interesting aircraft, and it looks cool. I mean, you gotta admit, right? And then we go for the rank 8. Just a disclaimer, remember that this rank 8 is kind of like, I mean, it can be divided in a rank 9 in the future as well, right? So it depends on how Gaijin will want to do this, if they're going to add a rank 9 or 10 or whatever, or not, okay? But let's go as it is a rank 8 for now. First one, Mirage 2000s, obviously. Mirage 2000 H and I, but specifically the H for now. Exported model for India with the RDM plus radar. It is basically the Mirage 2000Es, right? They are C variants for export, okay? Uses the M53 P2 engine, also has the Atlas II laser pod, Armat missiles, AS-30Ls, basically all the things that the Mirage 2000C uses, right? And then the Mirage 2000I would be basically the same, but compared to the 2000-5 Mark II, so basically an exported model of that. So it has Israeli and French avionics and weapons. You can even use the R-73, and it has HMDs, you know, helmets, to guide the missiles and stuff. There are some sources that claim that even the H can do this, use the R-73 together with the HMD, so that would be interesting to see. But yeah, basically exported models of the Mirage 2000s that can use the R-73 and have HMDs, right? The Rafale EH, I mean, I couldn't actually confirm from what variant it actually comes, but it is basically an exported version for India specifically, so it might have some specific things for the Indian Air Force or Navy. I think it's Navy, but still, I have to check. Then we have the two most controversial aircraft of the Tech 3. I don't know if this should be added or not, but at least the Mark II, I don't know, so maybe, you know, don't get me wrong, but still. The Tejas Mark 1, single-engine light multi-role aircraft, can do literally anything from anti-ship to BVR. It is basically a delta wing design, and it uses the 404 engine, the same as the Grip and the F-18. It still uses the Grisha 23mm, and it has a multi-mode radar for air-to-ground and air-to-air. So, very interesting aircraft. I don't know if it is more capable than the Rafale, but as I said, it's just a presentation how these Tech 3 would look like. Not that it will look like this, right? And the Mark II is more of a heavier version of that, more well designed with canards and other stuff. But this is pretty much just a project right now. We don't know if it's going to be when it's going to be built or anything. But yeah. It's right here. It has the 414 engine, so a different engine, and it would have different systems and stuff. So nothing too crazy to talk about these. I would suggest that they are like comparable to very modern F-16s, like the Block 70s that they are out there somewhere. Or even better than that because of the delta wing that it can turn very well, and the engine is pretty alright depending on the weight that they have. So interesting aircraft, and if an Indian Tech 3 comes, this needs to be there, right? At least the Mark 1. Then we go for the MiGs over here, MiG-29 912B. Obviously, normal MiG-29, but being the 912B, it is the most, less trusted country's export model, right? So it is basically the same as the 912A, but it has less complex systems. And the main thing that you would notice is that this one literally cannot use the R-27T. So yeah, there is that. And then afterwards, the MiG-21 UPG, which is the MiG-21 R-93. So this one would actually carry not only the R-73s and R-27s, we already did a whole video about it that you can check, but also would use the Kopio 25 radar, so very good radar, air-to-ground, air-to-air, anti-ship. You can use the R-77s. It can basically do anything. So it's the most modern MiG-21 in the world, if I'm not mistaken. I have to compare it to the Lancer, but still, if it's not the most, the Lancer is, and this is the second, but it's just a very modern MiG-21. The MiG-21 UPG, so basically similar to the MiG-21 SMT, upgrade to the older MiG-29s that they used, Zuk M radar, so PESA, IFR probe, I think it's PESA, right? Better RD-33 engines, better electronic warfare systems, everything is just better avionics, better cockpit upgrades, all of these two, we just have all of these upgrades, right? And then the MiG-29K, obviously MiG-29K, it is the new levelized version of the MiG-29, the 941. The Russian Air Navy is also using this right now. So yeah, it's basically an upgraded version of the older 931 from the 80s, right? So it is a very, very, very modern MiG-29, right? It is basically as good or almost as good as the MiG-35. It is very, very modern, one of the latest versions of it, and yeah, just a navalized version of that, together with all the upgrades that a modern MiG-29 would have, right? And then the last one, and one of the best aircraft right here, would be the Su-30 MKI, right? A replaced modernized version of the Su-27, obviously, with a lot of the Indian stuff on it, can basically do anything. Really, really, this is like the multi-mission aircraft, right? It has both Russian and Indian missiles and equipment, PESA radars, Fox 3 missiles, R-73s, you know, Astra missiles, Mikas. It was tested, the Mikas on it, at least. R-27s, cruise missiles, PV missiles, anti-ship missiles, laser-guided missiles, SEED missiles, you know, anti-radiation, TV bombs, unguided stuff. I mean, it can do anything. And according to at least most of the sources, it has a thrust vectoring engine as well, which is very, very powerful. So it is one of the most modern Su-30s out there, like if you take it off the Russian ones a little bit and some of the Chinese ones. So it is very, very modern, and it would be probably the best aircraft in the Indian tech tree, together with maybe these two. So yeah, very, very interesting. And then the two last aircraft, the Jaguar Max, it is basically an upgrade that they are planning to do or something like that. Even more upgraded with Astra Fox 3 missiles, more powerful, proposed HTFE-25 engines, SRAM missiles, GBUs, PGMs, Storm Shadows, can do BVR, can do basically everything. So yeah, the latest model of the Jaguar that we can see in the game, right? And then the last MiG-27 over here, it's also an upgrade of the older 27M. This is the MiG-27H. It is basically using French avionics, the same levels of performance, but less weight and size in these equipments, right? It has MFDs, GPS and INS, nav systems, better comms, electronic warfare, you know, stuff against radio, you know, problems and stuff like that, better HUD, and also more stuff in the sense of, you know, it can carry the French Agave radar or the Komar radar of the Russians, giving it an anti-ship capability as well. So this would be an Indian tech tree, very kind of lacking a little bit on the early stuff over here, but to be honest, in the upper tiers, it is even better than some of the other countries that we already have in the game. So yeah, and with very interesting, you know, aircraft and systems. Yes, it would have some copy-paste to a certain extent. I mean, these are MiG-29s, MiG-21s and MiG-23s. These are Mirages, you know, MiG-27s. You know, there's a lot of copy-paste, but with very cool modifications, especially in rank 8 and rank 7, right? So it would be very, very cool to see this. I don't know if you guys want this, but I don't know, let me know in the comments, you know, would you like to see an Indian tech tree or other tech trees like this? Did you like that I did a video talking about the future of a possible tech tree like this? Let me know in the comments, and I see you guys on the next one. Okay, guys? So bye. See ya.